Hello, this is Hasenbrotten from PokerStrategy.com. I'm making a video now of playing 4 tables, no limit $10. Well, I'll try to explain somehow the game flow and just play and try to comment on it so you understand why I'm doing what and why I'm not doing something in a special situation. Here I just hit the fold button because there is normally no way I'm playing this hand because it's just not good enough even if I have position. My hand is suited though, but more or less everything I can make is a flush. With 6-9 offsuit, with 6-9 suited, you need to flop a straight or a flush draw to be good. You can't even flop straight draws that are 2-card straight draws. And 1-card straight draws in unraised pots are normally not that big of a value maker because it's normally very much not hidden if you hit because it's easy to see that some straight came in. And if you don't hit with 9-6 suited, you just stand there with 9 high, which is no good. Actually, 2. So I just decide to not play it here against the big stack with ace-6 offsuit. We steal the blinds and we get his blind. Ace-2 suited here just goes into the muck. I'm coming from under the gun, having 9 people behind me, so I'm not playing a hand that's basically a drawing hand without position or something. So, guess it is basically clear. Here, I'm trying to get his blind also. 6-7 offsuit is close, you don't have to steal that one. As well as you don't have to steal like ace-6 offsuit because the hand does not play very well post-flop. But as long as you do not get the feeling that the person you're stealing against is trying to play back hard on you and float you often, raise you on the flop often. You can just raise because many people will just play straightforward style. And if they play straightforward, it's usually not that big of a problem raising them with a marginal hand because they very often just have nothing to play back, and if they play back you can easily fold because you just have not enough of a hand. So I would be stealing there against some passive tight passive guy, also against tight aggressive guys as long as they don't want to play back on me. Against people that are like very loose, maybe don't even have a full stack on the table, it makes no sense in my opinion to raise them here because you just don't get them to fold often enough, and with a hand like 6-7 offsuit you don't hit often enough to stand a showdown. So you're basically committed to make your opponent fold, and if you can't make your opponent fold you shouldn't try. It's this never bluff a calling station kind of thing, and it starts of course pre-flop. Here Queen Jack, kinda loose, but I think it's borderline, but okay, since we have a short stack in the big blind, who will very often just have to fold his blind. So I raise here. Try to get the pot. I'm getting called by this guy. I got called by him twice before starting the video, and I got raised twice on the flop, so I have to watch out maybe a little bit, but this is just a very small sample size, which might just mean nothing. He could have had in both times just call me preflop with a pocket pair and then hit a set and raise it for value and protection, of course, on the flop. So this happening like just once or twice might make you think of people playing loose or maybe try to bluff you. But you should be very well aware that this also could just be a hand if it just happens 2 times and you don't see him doing this against other people. well. Now we don't have a hand. People sometimes take a real long time to play on this limit. Maybe some of them are just like beginners and not used to the software and to poker at all. So it takes just some time to decide whether or not to play a hand and how to play it. Which sometimes, of course, is a bit annoying, but okay. Here I just hit the fold button because ace-6 offsuit. You might think of raising here if it gets first into you, but even that is very close and I wouldn't do it. And this hand is a hand I'm playing with position, at least with initiative, at the best with position also, and I'm not playing it if I don't have it. Since people limped here, I'm not raising limpers with ace-6 offsuit. My hand is just way too bad. There are lots of hands that can get me in trouble, and I just don't want to call with a hand like this, so I'm just folding. Here I basically 3-bet. He's coming from a late middle position, so I more or less want to know where I'm at. I just don't want to call, because I don't know where I'm at. If I flop an overpair, it's gonna get really hard to play, so I just re-raise. And this is like a real good flop for me because he's gonna have a hard time folding aces. Sometimes people even give you action on a flop like this with queens or something. And of course he's never ever folding ace-king, and we are very much ahead of ace-king, so it's a real good flop, but since he had none of those hands, we don't get action. He might possibly even fold aces on this flop, which wouldn't be good in my opinion. But I'm really sure he didn't have aces or something because he folded so fast. Nobody ever is folding like aces that fast on flop like this. Here against 5 people, 6-way pot, I'm basically check folding this flop to a big bet because I just have a pair of kings with a mediocre kicker, and there is a flush draw out there, and some hands of course do beat me right now, and I'm just check folding because I'm out of position. The pot very well might get big and I don't want to play a big pot with my hand, so I just check fold. If the flop gets checked through, I'm basically betting most turn cards and believing I'm best, but here I just check fold. I'm curious what those two have to maybe prove you or maybe show you that it's very well possible that I was beat on the flop. Because against 5 people, top pair, mediocre kicker just is not that good. And the problem is, if I am good, I'm not making any money because normally people do not call here with worse. And if I'm bad, I'm losing a lot of money because the pot is already pretty big with 6 people in it. And my bet on the flop also will make it even bigger. So I'm just check folding. Here I like raising. We could of course just call because we do have a strong enough draw just to call and we are getting good odds. But his bet could mean more or less everything, and I'm trying to make him fold lots of bad hands. Like, I don't know, he might be donk betting here like more or less any pair. Sometimes a 10, sometimes like a weak jack or something. I doubt he's going to fold a weak jack, but even that is possible. A 10 often is folding, pocket pairs are folding, and my hand is not too big that I don't like taking the pot just right now on the flop. Since that is a fact, I do pretty much prefer raising here. If he's donking into it the next time, I might be more tempted just to call, because he might be less tempted to fold, and if I have a draw, of course. So if I raise somebody on the flop and he's folding, I try to have, the next time I'm raising him on the flop, I try to have a value raising hand and not a bluffing hand, because people of course tend to fold less often. Here with my pocket deuces and one guy already in the pot, I'm just coming along, paying the big blind. First to act, I would have raised to try to steal the dead money from the blinds, because they're short stackers. But with one semi-short stack limping here, I don't see raising being profitable. But limping still is okay. And without a hit, of course, we check fold against 4 opponents. Pretty much without any doubts. I'm not even thinking of doing anything but folding. Except, of course, if I hit the set, but I didn't hit the set on the turn and I'm not paying off. A turn bet, though, to draw at my 2-outer. Well, some guy with ace high decided to donk bet out there, and some guy with top pair decided to call down. Here I'm just limping more or less because of the same reason in the last hand. And here I'm even in an earlier position, with which makes raising even closer. So I think just limping here is best. Of course we do risk this, I just wanted to mention it, that he with like 5.5 big blinds gonna go all in here. But I don't see us calling here profitably, because we can't call for set value against him, of course. Neither can we call against him, and he is having any 2 cards. He's very likely not to call pre-flop, because he normally does not have a hand. If he has a hand, he is pretty much always going to raise it himself pre-flop, so he does not have a hand, so we can't expect him to pay us off often enough, though. This one can be folded as well as this one. We might, of course, think of playing this hand here. Ace Jack offsuit is not the worst hand in poker, but since we have a real big open raise from under the gun, we of course just muck it. Even against the normal under the gun raise, I don't see us calling here. I don't see calling here being profitable, so I don't like playing it pretty much at all. Deuce 3 offsuit here gives us the blinds, which is of course more or less the best possible result, because I wouldn't have been playing this hand, and you usually do not win like big pots with Deuce 3 offsuit. Here I'm folding, and here even getting good odds, I fold this hand. 6-7 suited I would be calling, and if he was a big stack I would be calling also, but being out of position with like some guy with how much was it, like 45 big blinds left and one aggressor, just I don't think it's enough. I don't think I win a big enough pot if I hit often enough to justify calling and losing lots of the smaller pots. So I decided just to fold it pre-flop. And well, top pair with a good kicker gets sucked out and then pays off. This here is, of course, a very nice hand. I be re-raising here. And I'm basically going to get it in. I don't have any history with this guy, I don't know how tight he is, and I don't think I'm ever folding this hand here pre-flop. Since this flop is pretty drawy and he might very well have like ace king suited or something, I'm gonna make it expensive for him to call, but he decides better of it. And here I raise my pocket nines with dead money in the pot. I tried to steal it, Flop, of course, is not the best one for me, but it's still an okay board to continuation bet, because I don't expect him all too often call with the 10, so a better hand might fold, and we very well can represent the ace, so he would be not all too inclined to try to bluff us here. So, well, of course, sometimes he just has the ace, or even better, but very often he has just nothing and is not going to bluff us. One thing that's not too good is, of course, the 10. If the 10 was an 8, it would have been even better, because the second pair, we beat the second pair. He could even call with a worse made hand on the flop, and if the flush draw wasn't out there, we wouldn't risk too much being bluffed out. Ace Jack suited from under the gun, you could raise here, but on a full ring table I don't like it, so I just fold. Here from late position, of course, something else we very well might raise here, and we will open raise, and we will even isolate a limper here. Our hand is, I think, strong enough and plays much better in position with being and with initiative than maybe out of position without initiative. Limping here is not an option. If you don't want to raise, you should fold your hand. He's playing pretty fast, donking out tough pot size, but I don't like raising him here with just 2 undercards, because if he has an ace, he's very often not folding to my raise, and well, I'm more or less dead if he had the ace, so I just fold. Here it's something else. I do have some overcards, and once again he might be betting a lot of hands into me, so I just raise him, and I think now I can just give up, because he made clear he's not folding, or at least he made it look like he's not folding. And we might be in deep trouble against trips or something, and we might of course be dead against a full house or something. I'm raising this flop to get middle pairs, some hands that are testing the waters to fold, but if I get action here, I just mug my hand. It's not that you should like be married to a hand you once tried to bluff somebody. I try to bluff here, I get busted, I just give up. That's the way it goes. It's not that just because I decided on the flop, I decided to try to bluff him. Now he calls and donks out again half pot size. It's not that I'm committed now to raise him like all in here, just because I decided to bluff on the flop. On the flop I do have much more folding equity against his hands, because his range is much wider. What do you expect him to call me with on the flop? And then lead out again on the turn, and then fold to an all-in. There are not many hands. There is just the flush draw I'm ahead of. If he didn't pair, that's the only hand. And putting somebody only on a flush draw and risking a full buy-in just to prove that read in marks, it's just bad play. Makes no sense. So I'm not doing it. Raising the flop here against an unknown opponent is okay, but you don't have to do it. You can also just fold your hand. But raising the turn is just suicidal. Here against a short stack with a bottom pair, I'm betting. And since he called, I just give up. Unless I improve. I don't see myself being ahead here very often, so I just might. He might very well be playing a better hand on the flop and on the turn like this, and he might also very well have just sucked me out on the turn or on the river. I do see some strange plays by short stacks sometimes, so I think everything I just mentioned is highly possible. 9-5 offsuit from the small blind I'm not gonna play, so I just hit the fold button so I can concentrate on the other tables or on whatever I'm talking about right now. I like using those pre-selective buttons you get you get if you have a hand and the action has not come to you so far. I like to use them if it's pretty much clear what I'm doing. Here, King 8 offsuit I'm not playing, as well as here I'm not playing Jack 4 offsuit, so I just can hit the fold button and invest my mind somewhere else. I like thinking about hands on other tables, watching the tables, watching people play, watching how hands turn out, and try to get a read on my opponents, and not waste the time with concentrating on things that are perfectly clear, like the fold with Jack 4 offsuit. With King 8 offsuit you might think of raising first in from the button, but I don't like it. The hand is just too bad, and in my opinion, you do not have enough folding EKT, pre-flop or post-flop on this limit to make raising justified. Wait, this is getting a big pot. From the button I would have get involved here, but from the cutoff with 3 people behind me and just 3 people in the pot, I don't like it. Here with pocket tens against an under the gun raiser and a cold caller, he could think of squeezing, but I don't like it because I expect his range to be too tight for that to make raising profitable, so I decide better of it and just call, and on this flop I can easily give up. My AKT is just down to hell here. Here, of course, we just have to call 28 cents more with an okay hand. I even expect to be ahead sometimes, or like have a coin flip or something, because with this stack he's normally going to put it in with a lot of hands and ace jack. Of course it's a call, even if he has aces I have to call, so makes no sense even to think about folding here. Here with kings, of course, we raise. And we do our continuation bet. Pretty fast calls. Think I bet it again. And I think I'm all in on this river. I don't expect him to bluff with a flush draw here or something here very often. The 10 might normally not have helped him unless he has the 10 high flush and unless he had like ace 10 of clubs or something. I have to risk that, but I expect him, or I hope he's going to call me with a hand like ace queen or something often enough to make going all in here justified, and he did just what I said. Of course, you're sometimes beat here. He might as well have slow rolled us on the flop with like pocket fours or pocket deuces or pocket queens. Maybe he slow rolled pre-flop and on the flop with pocket aces. Of course, we're not ahead here every single time, but you have to think of the pot size and of the stack sizes on this river once again if you decide not to go all in, because the pot was like 7 and a bit big. I don't know, 750 or something, and I had like 650 behind. So I had even less than one pot-sized bet behind. No draw came in, and the river card even was pretty good for us, because some hands that have us beat and just call down so far, we do beat now. So there is the question: what's he doing with a better hand? What's he doing with a worse hand? Well, if he has a better hand, he at least has pocket aces. More likely, he has trip tens or a full house. He might check behind pocket aces, but I don't expect him to. I expect pocket aces to go all in on this river very often. So, besides pocket aces, every single hand that's better than our hand puts us all in on this river. Can we fold? Well, I don't think we can, because he as well might have a flush draw or a hand like ace queen he's not bluffing with, but he might be value betting a worse hand. If he's bad enough, he might try to value bet an ace queen on this river, exactly the hand he had. He might try to value bet here. So if he decides, if he might be bluffing or if he might be value betting a worse hand, I don't think we can fold here safely. But as a matter of fact, the worse hands very often check behind. It's not all too likely he's going to try to bluff us with a flush draw here, and it's not all too likely, since he just called down right so far with his possible ace queen or king queen or something. It's not neither will he value bet those all too often, but of course he will value bet better hands. So if we just check, we have to call an all-in, but if we call this all-in, we are way more often beat if we just go all-in by ourselves and let him decide if he calls. Because since the possibility him bluffing the flush draw is pretty small, I think, there is just one hand left he's going all in with, but this hand very well might call, especially if we expect him to go all in with ace queen himself. He's of course calling our all in, so there it doesn't change. Against the big hands it doesn't change, but against a pair of queens, basically a pair of queens, it changes much, because he's often checking behind but calling our all in. So we should just go all in by ourselves, since we're not folding to an all in anyways. Well, I know this was kind of long explanation. I hope you get my point. The conclusion of this is that you just should, if you're pot committed anyways, if you see a good chance of your Willian calling you with a worse hand, and as well you see a good chance of your Willian checking behind hands that are calling and you have beat, you should just go in by yourself and maybe puke if he has a hand you beat. But since you wouldn't have folded anyways, it makes no difference, and it's the better play to go all in there by yourself. Pot size is a big deal in those situations. Well, here we have an ace-jack suited. If the small stack raises here, I'm folding. But if he just limps, I think I raise, and if he did not limp, I would open raise for sure. And well, now this hand is done. He has like 8. Wow. The short stacker had like 8-7 offsuit, open raised 7 big blinds, then shoved for 15 cents or something, for just a very few cents more on the flop, got called with the very same hand I had, and then sucked out on it, because he bet out, he let out and called with ace high and was good and got sucked out. To me it's kind of funny. I don't know how you think about it, but to me it's kind of funny, so I just mentioned it. But I'm not calling here out of position with another big stack behind me with an ace-jack suited. If I know he's raising those hands here, next time with an ace-jack suited and him having roundabout his stack from the hand before, I might re-raise himself to isolate him and then go all in against him, because I have an edge over his hand. But just calling here is just crucial, because the big stack behind us gets kind of good odds, and we don't like to play the hand from there. So we either have to go all in with the short stacker before the flop, or we just have to fold the hand. And against an unknown short stacker, you don't want to go all in with an ace-jack suited in this situation. So folding is best. Here from the cutoff, of course, we open raise our pocket pair and just get the blinds. It's an okay result. And down here I raised queen 10 suited from the cutoff and just got the blinds as well, which of course is okay as well. King deuce suited here, I'm once again just using this pre-selective button and just fold it before the action comes to me, because from out of middle position I'm not folding the king. I'm not calling or raising the king deuce suited, so I might as well just hit the fold button. as well here. 10-8 suited is just too bad to be played out of middle position. You might consider yourself under the gun, but you're middle position because there's one guy sitting out. So positions just move one toward the button, so you just have two people playing under the gun. Those two, and so we make the first play in middle position. Well, you might of course, as always, think of stealing dead money there with because somebody posted a blind, but I don't like it at all with the hand because there are still too many people behind us that either can call and destroy our advantage of position, and it might come to a multi-way pot. You might get re-raised, and your hand just does not have enough EQT. Your position is too bad to justify raising. Of course, there are reasons to raise in this situation, but you always have to see the whole situation. And if you consider all information you have together, raising makes no sense. Here, again, with my pocket pair against the short stack open raiser, I can't call profitably, so I just mucked it. If it did not raise, I would just have called the big blind and played the hand from there. But even that is close. You might as well fold here. On a table with mostly full stacks, like this one here maybe, or especially this one, we just have one short stack here, you might very well be just limping. Nah, it's too close. But here we only have 1, 2, he's sitting out, so we have just 2 more or less big stacks to play against. Those are the only people I really want to play my pocket pair against. Since there are just 2 of them, and the rest are short stackers, I might as well just fold my hand. But normally on a better table with more big stacks, I would limp here and then decide whether or not I call a raise preflop if there is one. Of course, our range is pretty much defined in those situations because a tag player does normally not limp and then call a raise from under the gun without a pocket pair. It's pretty much always a pocket pair. But as a matter of course, it's kind of clear, and if your opponents are observing the table, they might take advantage out of this. But you have to be realistic and think about how many people do really observe the table on this limit. And since I don't expect them to be all too many, I think we can make a point of doing this because we still get paid off often enough to make it justified. Here, whoa, I call the minimum raise because minimum raises always look fishy, especially from the open, especially as an open raiser from the button. So I call with my queen 10 offsuit, and well, I just flop nothing and check fold. I just said wow because he bet $4 or something into 60 cents, which makes absolutely no sense. So calling there might have been a good idea because he seems to be paying us off if we try to check raise here. Think of the flop being like 10 10 10 or I don't know, queen 10 3, ace king jack, anything we flop something big, and he bet like $4. It's so profitable because he more or less even committed himself with this bet. So here I think I'm isolating an under the gun limper who is, I'm not that sure, but I thought at least a bit like Titus, and I'm raising here mainly because I expect him to have a pocket pair very often, and pocket pairs have of course they sometimes hit and set value is good and blah 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 so on, but as a matter of fact you have to give up your hand a lot on the flop. So if you raise in position against those people a lot, you can take down the pot very often without being contested, because even if he does have the best hand, he still will have to fold because there are like overcards you didn't hit, he doesn't know. So you win the pot a lot, and if he gives you action, You can just fold. Here it's, once again, the board is dry, and I expect him to bet like a lot of hands here to try to bluff me to find out where it's at and I expect him to fold a huge part of its range to my raise. So I'm raising. On the other hand, of course, I'm normally not beat if he calls me. I don't expect him to re-raise me there very often. And if he 3-bets me, I don't expect to be good, even if I hit the ace normally. So I'm not dead if he calls normally, and I get him to fold a lot. So I just raise, because on this board I don't believe him like having. Of course, sometimes he has something. You can't rule that one out of question, like at all. But he more often has nothing than he does have something. Here I just limp because the other guy in the pot just comes from under the gun. Him coming from middle or late position, I would have raised there even out of position to isolate him. But against an under the gun raiser, I don't like it all too much. I prefer just completing the small blind and trying to reevaluate on the flop. And since the big blind then raised, I gave up and just folded. I'm of course not calling here. Limp calling I don't even have to say a word about that. It makes no sense at all. 8-6 suited from under the gun. All crappy hands here. Ace-4 offsuit. Here it's close. This is like MP3 is like the position I start to think of raising Queen-Jack offsuit and Queen-Jack suited and stuff. So I might be tempted to do it, but since another guy open raised, I of course just fold. I'm not cold calling those hands. There is a real big. You really have to understand that there is a real big difference between hands you can open raise and between hands you can call raises with. You can call raises with very few hands, and you can raise a lot of hands. So if somebody else raised and your hand, if it's a close hand to raise, of course your hand is way too weak to re-raise. You just have to fold your hand. Might sound somewhat funny if you just start playing poker, but I'm sure it will make sense to you like really soon, because initiative is something very important, and initiative is something very profitable also. And so if you once accepted that, it comes to your mind that it can't be profitable, or many hands that just have not that good of an equity or something might get profitable if you raise them, because if you raise them, you add folding equity to your equity, so you don't have to win all the showdowns, because you often win without a showdown. On the other hand, if you don't raise and if you don't have initiative, it gets way less profitable to try winning hands without without a hand, without a showdown, because you have to bluff people post flop, and you didn't prepare your bluff. If you raise pre-flop and then bluff on the flop because you didn't hit, which is called a continuation bet and is a normal part of poker. Sorry. Which is a normal part of poker. Your folding equity is much better than if you call raise pre-flop and then try to bluff the raiser out of the pot post-flop. It's way less profitable because your bluff has not been prepared by raise pre-flop. If you raise pre-flop, then bet the flop. The usual way is if the other guy has nothing, he just folds. If he doesn't, of course he sometimes wins the pot, but it's gonna get real hard and real expensive for him, because he is in a way less profitable situation. So this comes, in the end, this leads us to the fact that we can profitably raise sometimes with hands, because we make people fold post-flop and win back what we raised pre-flop, but they're not profitably calling. It's not profitably calling them pre-flop, because you don't get the fold often enough. Or making people fold will be too expensive. Here I raise my pocket up. I raise my pocket fours from the button, which is kind of usual play, I think, and now I raised my pocket nines, which is usual as well. And I think we are going to come to an end slowly. Because it's been like 40 minutes and this is the average time for a video. So I'm basically closing the tables now. I won like one buy-in, which of course is a very good result for playing like 40 minutes on 4 tables and even explaining while playing. If you watch all my videos, you will of course see some bad losing sessions of mine, because variance in 40 minutes it's just way bigger than your expected value. So even if you're a big winning player and you take 40-minute break out of your big session, you of course will find losing sessions in there. So with those words, I'm going to close. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you understood my video and you're maybe looking forward to watch other ones by me. I say goodbye and until next time.